The Avery Corporation's mid-year strategy session was always more about ego than economics, but this time they'd really outdone themselves. I paused at the entrance to the sleek boardroom in San Francisco's financial district, watching my cousin Brandon place name tags with exaggerated care. He didn't even look up. "Oh, Zoe," he muttered. "The overflow space is down the hall, storage room next to janitorial. We need this space for real decision makers." I glanced down at my navy suit, Alexander McQueen, perfectly cut, and thought about the irony. About the folder in my briefcase that could append everything. "Real decision makers," I repeated. "You know," he said smugly. "People who count." My Aunt Karen joined in, tugging at the sleeve of her coral blazer. "Not part-time freelancers like you." Freelancer. That's what they called me now. The family let down who'd left Avery Corp 7 years ago at 29 to find herself. They had no idea I hadn't just found myself. I'd built something bigger than all of them. Brandon smirked. "Hope you don't mind boxes. Storage is a little cramped lately, but I'm sure you can squeeze in beside the water heater." I thought of the message I'd received that morning. Confirmation that Meridia Capital had just acquired another 6% of Avery Corp shares. My company now controlled 51%, purchased quietly over 4 years through a labyrinth of holding firms. They had no idea that Meridia Capital was me. "The session starts in 15, Karen said, patting her clipboard like it contained national secrets. "We've got major partners flying in." She gave me a sideways glance. "I'm presenting the Skytech proposal myself." I bit my lip to stifle a grin. Skytech was in negotiations with me directly. They just didn't know the woman behind Meridia yet. "How's the gig life treating you?" Brandon asked with faux sympathy. "Still working out of that tiny co-working space in Soma." That tiny space was actually the testing ground for one of my incubator ventures. My real headquarters, a 5-story innovation tower with an ocean view and rooftop helipad. "I manage," I said softly, lifting my briefcase. "The storage room's that way," Karen said, waving a hand. "Just don't interrupt. We have actual business to discuss." I nodded silently and stepped into the so-called storage room, pulling the door shut behind me. The space was cluttered, dim, and smelled faintly of dust and mildew. How fitting, a perfect reflection of how my family saw me, forgotten, unwelcome, tucked away out of sight. 7 years ago, I'd been where Aunt Karen stood now, at the front of the room, hailed as the next generation of leadership at Avery Corporation. Back then, I believed in the company. I believed in legacy until I found the files. Environmental negligence disguised as cost-saving, dangerous shortcuts in manufacturing labeled efficiency. Labor violations marked as non-issues. When I brought the documents to my uncle, he laughed and waved them away. "It's business, Zoe. Don't get sentimental. If this bothers you, maybe you're not cut out for this world." So I left quietly, using the trust my mother had left me. Money earned long before she ever married into the Avery dynasty. I built Meridia Capital. The name was my tribute to her, Meredith Lang, a woman who had once told me, "You don't have to inherit power to create it." And I had created it from scratch, slowly, quietly, and differently. Meridia didn't cut corners. We invested in clean energy, ethical manufacturing, tech built with transparency. While Avery Corp clung to its crumbling hierarchy, I expanded, buying into undervalued firms, stabilizing shaky industries, and positioning Meridia as a silent giant. And now Avery Corporation had bled trust. Clients were exiting, revenues flatlined. They needed rescue. They just didn't know the lifeline was coming from me. I settled between dusty boxes and old binders. Opening my laptop through the thin partition wall, I heard voices rising. Karen greeting partners, Brandon posturing with buzzwords. "Mr. Sky, we're thrilled about the direction of the proposal," she gushed. I grinned. Skytech wasn't here for Avery. They were here for Meridia, for me. The same deal Karen thought she was negotiating had already been finalized under my name. My phone buzzed. From Maya, assistant team ready. Proxy votes secured. Board leadership aligned. Waiting on your signal. I exhaled slowly, eyes fixed on the flickering fluorescent light overhead. From the storage room of rejection, I was about to claim the seat they all thought was theirs. Another buzz. Maya, Mr. Sky asks if you'd prefer he continued the charade through the entire meeting or reveal you. Now I pause, fingers hovering over the keyboard, then typed back. Let's see how it plays out, but make sure he doesn't sign anything Karen hands him. The storage room door creaked open suddenly. My uncle's newest wife, Camille, 20 years his junior, and dressed like she'd wandered off a runway, poked her head in. Zoe, your uncle wants the door shut. Says your typing's distracting. I gave a polite nod, wondering how she'd react when she found out her airtight prenup had been quietly acquired by one of Meridia's legal affiliates along with a thick file of surveillance photos from her Pilates instructor. Through the wall, I heard Uncle Harrison begin. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for coming, he said, voice rich with practiced gravitas. As you know, Avery Corporation is currently exploring select partnership opportunities. Partnership opportunities. A sanitized phrase for investor lifelines. In reality, they were circling the drain. $200 million cents short of survival by quarter's end. Coincidentally, that was exactly what Meridia Capital was offering under very specific terms. I glanced at my screen. Avery Core stock had dipped another 2.1% since the market opened. Right on schedule. Karen's voice rang through the walls artificially bright as she launched into her proposal for Skydeck. And with Mr. Sky's investment, she finished, we'll be positioned to expand aggressively across the Western Tech Corridor. Actually, Mr. Sky's familiar voice cut in. I'm not here for that proposal. The silence was instant. I'm here to meet with the CEO of Meridia Capital. I could almost hear Karen's smile shatter. I'm sorry, she faltered. But this was arranged through Avery. It was, Sky confirmed smoothly. But Meridia now holds a controlling interest in Avery Corporation. And in multiple vendors you rely on, including my own firm. That's ridiculous, Uncle Harrison snapped. We'd know if someone was buying up our company. I stood, smoothing my blazer, and opened the storage room door. Would you? I said, stepping into view, like you knew your emissions audits were fabricated or that your offshore contractors are violating labor laws or that your clients have already signed with someone more accountable. Every head in the room turned. For the first time in years, they really saw me. Not as the forgotten niece in the corner, but as the woman who owned the floor beneath their feet. If you want to see what Zoe does next and how the board reacts when she takes her rightful seat, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next chapter of her quiet revenge. Every head in the conference room snapped toward me. Karen's cheeks lost all color. Brandon dropped the gold-plated pen he always flaunted. Uncle Harrison's face stiffened, caught between disbelief and mounting dread. He choked out. What? What are you talking about? I offered a calm smile and stepped fully into the room. Perhaps we should restart this meeting, I said smoothly. It's rather rude to leave your majority shareholder in the storage closet. The silence was deafening. I strode confidently to the head of the table and set down my briefcase with a soft, deliberate click. Meridia Capital, I began, enjoying the way Harrison's jaw tightened with each syllable, now holds 51% of Avery Corporation's stock. Dead silence. We also control a majority stake in 3 of your 5 primary vendors. We've acquired your largest line of credit, and as of this morning, we've signed exclusivity agreements with over 80% of your top clients. That's not possible, Karen stammered. Meridia is run by me, I finished, voice steady. It has been since I left Avery Corp 7 years ago. Not that any of you noticed. You were too busy padding numbers and chasing quarterly wins to see who was quietly buying your legacy out from under you. Brandon found his voice first. But you're just a consultant. You work out of that shared space downtown. I smiled. That's one of our R&D labs. I clicked open my laptop and connected to the boardroom's display. My actual office is Sterling Tower. You know, the one that literally casts a shadow over this building. The screen lit up with performance charts. Declining revenue, rising legal risks, client attrition. Let's begin, I said. Since I left, Avery Corp stock has fallen 60%. You're under EPA scrutiny, and the Department of Labor is preparing subpoenas. Now, wait a minute, Harrison began, voice rising. I am waiting. I cut in, sharper now. While you were grooming Karen and Brandon to cover up violations and silence whistleblowers, I was building something better. Mr. Sky gave a small nod. That's why our contract went to Meridia. They do business right. Ethics don't pay salaries, Karen snapped though her tone cracked. Actually, I advanced the slide. They do. Meridia's profit margins are 30% above industry standard. Because when you respect workers and the law, the returns respect you back. I passed around neatly prepared folders. Inside, you'll find Meridia's proposal for Avery Corporation's future. We're prepared to inject $200 million in capital, I said evenly. Exactly what you need to avoid insolvency. Uncle Harrison narrowed his eyes, his business instincts finally catching up. And what do you want in return? Control, I replied. Full operational authority. The Avery family retains 20% ownership, but all decisions will now go through Meridia Capital's board. I paused. Which means this company and this family is about to change. Brandon gave a weak laugh. You're bluffing. Karen, tell her she can't do this. She's not bluffing, Mr. Sky interjected. Ms. Lang holds 51% of this company. She has legal control, and with proxy support, she has a mandate. She absolutely can. I advanced the presentation to the next slide. A brutal timeline of Avery Corp violations, fines, lawsuits, OSHA investigations, EPA sanctions, a decade of rot. The choice is yours, I said. Accept our offer and let us rehabilitate this business, or let it collapse under the weight of your shortcuts. Karen's face turned pale. You'd destroy your own family's legacy. This isn't destruction, I replied. This is restoration. Meridia revives companies that have lost their way. We just happen to be starting with ours. Uncle Harrison stood slowly. The fire in his eyes hadn't dimmed, but it was tempered now by something like respect. You planned this, he murmured. All of it. The quiet exit, the shell corporations, the client poaching. I met his gaze. I learned from the best, Uncle. You taught me everything about winning. I softened. But not about how to win. That I learned from Mom. He winced at her name. Meredith Lang, his late sister, had been the only moral voice in the company. After her death, her values were erased from every boardroom decision, until now. I slid the paperwork across the table. The documents need to be signed today. Your creditors are circling. So is the EPA and the press. Karen clung to Harrison's arm. You can't let her do this. We'll find another investor. Can you? I raised a brow. Check your phones. All around the room, screens lit up. A push notification from Bloomberg. Meridia Capital declares majority ownership of Avery Corporation, immediate restructuring expected by closing bell. They'd be lucky if anyone bid on their nameplate. The room broke into chaos. Voices overlapping, phones buzzing, eyes darting. Brandon sank into his chair, pale and hollow. Karen just stared. Harrison held the contract in both hands, silent, and for once he read every word. His hands trembled slightly. You'll keep the Avery name? Uncle Harrison asked at last. The company name? Yes, I said, but not the practices that poisoned it. I met his eyes without wavering. It's time for Avery Corporation to stand for more than profit at any cost. He exhaled slowly and nodded. Then, with a reluctant reverence, he reached for the pen. Wait. Karen's voice cracked through the tension. What about us? Your positions are secure, I said evenly. If you're willing to learn a new way of doing business, Meridia offers excellent training in ethical governance and responsible leadership. I paused. or you can walk away with your 20% stake and figure out what comes next." "You'd really fire your own family?" Brandon asked, stunned. "I'd really expect my family to earn their positions," I corrected. "Just like every other Meridian employee does." The contracts were signed within the hour. As the boardroom slowly cleared, Mr. Sky approached me with a quiet handshake. "Brilliantly done," he said. "Your mother would be proud." I glanced toward the corner where Karen, Brandon, and Harrison stood in stunned silence, eyes hollow, their world rewritten in an afternoon. A small part of me pitied them, but a larger part knew this was necessary. Not just for the business, but for justice. The next few months were transformational. Avery Corporation's darkest practices were dismantled one by one. Fair wages and employee protections were prioritized. Sustainability was embedded into every department. Environmental audits weren't just passed. They set new benchmarks. To her credit, Karen surprised everyone. She enrolled in ESG certification programs, attended policy workshops, and earned a genuine role in Meridia's corporate responsibility division. Brandon took longer to adapt, but eventually found his place in community engagement. His charm finally served a purpose beyond distraction. It began rebuilding trust with partners and the public. Harrison stepped down as CEO, but remained on as a senior advisor. In time, he came to accept that what I built wasn't an attack on his legacy, but an elevation of it. 1 year later, I stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows of my office in Sterling Tower, watching the city glow below. In the distance, the Avery Corp building stood tall, its old logo now paired with Meridia's ethical business certification emblem. There was a knock. "Your uncle's here for the quarterly review," Maya said. And Jennifer just joined him. She brought some notes on the new worker safety initiatives. "Send them in," I said with a smile. As they entered my office, not a storage room, I reflected on how far we'd come. Legacy isn't about what you inherit. It's about what you choose to build. "Ready to go over the numbers?" Harrison asked, looking genuinely eager. I gestured toward the round table where every seat held equal weight. "Always," I replied. That's what happens when everyone is treated like they matter. Avery Corporation now thrived under Meridian's leadership. Proof that ethics and profits can coexist. And if anyone ever suggests putting someone in the storage room again, they're reminded of the day the consultant turned out to own the building. Sometimes the best view of success starts in the shadows. You just have to know when to open the door. If you've made it to the end of my story, thank you. Truly, I didn't share this for applause. I shared it because I know I'm not the only one who's ever been underestimated, sidelined, or told to stay quiet in the storage room. If something in my journey spoke to you, I'd love to hear it. Drop a comment below. Tell me what part hit home or how you faced your own version of being dismissed. We grow stronger by sharing. And if you believe in standing up for yourself even when your own family doesn't see your worth, then subscribe. Not for me, but for you. For the reminder that your voice matters, your work matters, and that patience combined with purpose is a force no one can ignore forever. Here's my advice. Don't wait for permission to build something meaningful. Use the silence, the rejection, the doubt, and turn it into fuel. Let every locked door push you to build your own. And when the time is right, open it. Step through it. Claim what's yours. Not out of vengeance, but out of truth. We deserve more than survival. We deserve to lead. Let's keep rising.